Good evening. The Planning Commission meeting of April 16th, 2025 is called to order. The Planning Commission meeting is being broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called Cablecast and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current Planning Commission agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Fuentes?
Here.
Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Manassian?
Here.
Commissioner Nazarian?
Here.
And Chairperson Chirocchian.
Here. Next, we have report regarding posting of the agenda.
The agenda for the April 16th, 2025 regular meeting of the Glendale Planning Commission was posted on April 9th, 2025 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of minutes from April 2nd, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any oral communications?
We do not. Any callers? We do not.
Do we have any board and commission member comments? Commissioner Fuentes.
Yes, Chair. Just a quick announcement again. The Filipino-American Business Association of Glendale is hosting an informational workshop entitled Building and Fire Safety at Home and Place of Business. It's going to be on May 12 from 5 to 7 p.m. and the venue will be at the YMCA of Glendale, 140 North Louis Street. I don't have the flyer yet, but we're going to be posting it on our social media. So the workshop will be presented by the Fire Prevention Bureau or Fire Department and our Building and Safety Inspection Section. And you're going to learn about awareness on fire risk, safety tips, preventions, annual check-ups that need to be done, protecting your family and business, and more on fire safety. So, again, join us on May 12 from 5 to 7 p.m. at the YMCA of Glendale, 140 North Louis Street, Building and Fire Safety at Home and Place of Business Workshop. It is free and open to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fuentes. Is it possible to leave an open window for commission member comments after Community Development Department updates prior to adjournment in the event that Commissioner Lee does come? This is supposed to be his last commission meeting, so I think we'd all like to say something and possibly hear from him if he's able to attend. So maybe we can revisit that at the end of the meeting. So I see no old business, and that brings us to new business. Item citywide annual report on the status of the general plan, an overview of the city's general plan elements and housing production data for the 2024 calendar year, and I believe we have a presentation.
We do. Chair Chirocchian, Planning Commissioners, good evening. The long-range planning staff is presenting an overview of the city's general plan elements and housing production data for the 2024 calendar year. This report was presented to the City Council on April 1st in compliance with state planning law, requiring all cities and counties to provide an annual progress report called an APR on their general plan elements and their housing elements performance to City Council, to the state's Housing and Community Development Department, and to the California Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation, formerly called the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. Glendale presented its APR to the city council, submitted it to HCD and OPR, or the HCL is the new acronym is called, and thereby satisfied the state legislation. And this is being presented to you as an informational item only. So no action needs to be taken by Planning Commission, but we thought you would be interested to learn more about the general plan elements, their statuses, as well as the annual progress report. So with that, I'd like to do a quick recap. The general plan, all cities and counties in the state of California are required to have a long-term, high-level, comprehensive plan that outlines the goals and strategies for a city's physical development. This ensures that growth is sustainable, orderly, and aligned with the community's needs and values. General plans always include a number of topical sections. These are called elements, and Glendale currently has a total of 10 elements. The mandatory elements required by state law are identified on the slide by an asterisk. These include housing, land use, mobility or circulation, noise, open space, and conservation. These are combined into one element, and safety. City also has optional elements for air quality, community facilities, historic preservation, and recreation. The state now also requires that environmental justice be addressed in the general plan as well. And the next several slides will provide status updates on each of these general plan elements. First up, land use. Land use is a key component and required element of the general plan. It was last comprehensively updated in 1986, and this element outlines the vision for land use in the city, includes two main parts. The land use element map, which designates areas of the which designates areas for different land uses on a parcel by parcel basis, and a land use plan, which provides policy guidance for long-term physical growth and development. Land use element is being comprehensively updated by De Novo Consulting and staff, alongside the mobility element update and the new environmental justice element. City Council has reviewed progress on the update twice last year, and based on Council's feedback, the element is being drafted to address the topic areas of land use mix, directed growth, compatible development, urban design, economic development, and infrastructure planning. Each of these areas will have its own goal, policies, and programs. The draft will be released later this year for public comment, accompanied by an extensive public outreach campaign. The circulation element was last updated in 1998 and primarily focuses on safe, efficient, multimodal, though mainly vehicular movement on city streets. A comprehensive update is underway, shifting the focus to creating a safe transportation network for all users, walkers, bicyclists, transit riders, and drivers. And the element is being renamed to the mobility element. As identified during the Council's mobility element progress report last year, the update will include goals and policies and implementation actions for complete streets, walking and bicycling, public transit ride sharing and carpooling, local and regional traffic demand, environmental health and air quality, parking, and goods movements. The update will also incorporate new priorities based on emerging trends, state mandates, and local and regional planning initiatives as informed by the city's new traffic model. The draft mobility element will be released alongside the land use and EJ elements. As noted, the state now requires that environmental justice be addressed in general plans, and the goal is to create equitable, healthy, and sustainable environments for all residents, particularly those disproportionately impacted by environmental health hazards and risks. The new EJ element is currently underway, and it will cover subjects such as pollution exposure, air quality, access to healthy food, community engagement, and other topics required by state law. Significant public outreach was conducted last year for the new EJ element, and these included online surveys, pop-up booths at events like Friar Service Day and Cruise Night, updates on the city's GlendalePlan.com website, email and social media announcements, and a direct mailer sent to over 40,000 Glendale households in multiple languages. City Council received a progress update on the EJ element last summer, and the draft EJ element is being finalized for public review alongside the land use and mobility elements. Safety element. Last updated in 2003, the safety element is intended to identify and reduce the potential risks from natural and man-made hazards such as earthquakes, wildfire, dangerous animals, and hazardous materials. Recently, the state of California updated the requirements for safety elements, and in line with these new state laws and guidelines, the 2025 Glendale Safety Element Update incorporates the most recent best practices related to flooding and wildfire, and also addresses updates to emergency evacuation policies, and includes a new section on the risks associated with climate change. The 2025 Safety Element Update was presented to you, Planning Commissioners, for review and recommendation on March 5th, and was presented to and adopted by City Council on April the 1st. In 1972, Glendale adopted a tripartite open space, conservation, and recreation element, which was later separated into two distinct general plan elements. First up, the open space and conservation element, which was adopted in 1993, focuses on the planning, management, and conservation of public open spaces and natural resources. Since both open space and conservation are both required general plan topics that are closely related, Glendale has combined them into one element. The recreation element was adopted in 1996, and this element addresses planning for parks, recreation areas, and recreational programming. In the fall of last year, the city released a request for proposal to update both elements, and consultant selection is scheduled for City Council later this month. Once the contract is awarded, the amendment process is expected to take 2 years. Noise. Last comprehensively updated in 2007. The noise element is a state-required general plan element which provides goals, policies, and programs to control environmental noise and to protect residents from excessive noise exposure. Noise element is implemented by the noise ordinance, which is Title 8 of the Glendale Municipal Code, and is also used in environmental evaluations under CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. No updates are currently planned for the noise element, but it may be amended as needed. This slide highlights 3 general plan elements that are not required by the state. The community facilities element was adopted in 1975 and provided information on various community facilities such as libraries, post offices, hospitals, religious facilities, and other public services. However, the element has not been updated in 50 years, and much of the information is now available on through other resources. As such, the community facilities element could be deleted from the general plan, though City Council expressed interest in revisiting it instead in the future. Air quality element, this was adopted in 1994. This was created to address the relationship between land uses and air quality, aiming to reduce air pollutant emissions. However, it is outdated due to more recent state legislation, especially those regarding greenhouse gas emission reduction requirements. Similar to the community facilities element, the role of the air quality element is now somewhat obsolete, and so it might be considered for deletion. And last but not least, the historic preservation element. This was last comprehensively updated in 1997, and it identifies important community resources and outlines processes to identify and designate historic properties. While no immediate updates are planned, a review and update might be necessary after the upcoming citywide historic survey is complete. Housing. Now, housing is a required element and is one of the most crucial components of a general plan because it outlines the city's strategies for meeting the housing needs of its current and future population. By state law, the housing element must be updated every 8 years, and we are currently in our 6th housing element cycle. And in the state of California, the Regional Housing Needs Reallocation, known as RHNA, is a key part of the housing element, and Teresa will expand on the RHNA topic in a few moments. The goals of the housing element are listed on this slide, and each goal includes its own set of policies and programs, some of which will be described in the next section on the APR. So for that, I would like to turn the presentation over to Teresa Santolina, Principal Planner in the Long Range Planning Team.
Thank you, Vilia. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Each year, by April 1st, jurisdictions in California are required to submit the APR to the state, reporting on any activity related to the general plan for the previous calendar year. A primary purpose of the APR is to report on the progress made towards housing element goals. This includes both program implementation and production of housing units as measured against the RHNA allocation. Submittal of the APR is crucial to ensure that jurisdiction maintain housing element certification. Glendale has successfully completed and submitted the APR each year. As Villia mentioned, the RHNA is a key component of the housing element. Jurisdictions in California were allocated significantly more units in the sixth cycle as the state sought to address a housing shortage. We can see from this table that Glendale was allocated more than 13,000 units across all income levels in the sixth cycle. It's important to note that the city is not required to build all of the units that are allocated through the RHNA. What the city is required to do is ensure that we have the capacity to develop the total RHNA. This is based on the existing zoning, land use policies, and development processes so that private developers have the ability to produce housing within the city. The housing element includes a sites inventory that demonstrates that we have this capacity. And long-range planning staff monitors the sites inventory as well as all housing applications to ensure that the city remains in compliance with this requirement. The housing element also includes a quantified objectives estimate of housing production that's based on past performance, funding availability, construction trends, land availability, and programs that are going to be implemented within the housing cycle. Glendale's quantified objectives identify that 5,510 new units across all income levels is a more likely development scenario than the full RHNA allocation. This table from the APR shows the progress that we've made towards the sixth cycle RHNA. The information for 2024 is highlighted in red. Progress towards RHNA is based on the issuance of building permits for new housing units. Last year, building permits were issued for 305 new units. So far, we've achieved 1,930 housing units towards the RHNA. Though we're making progress, it's unlikely that the full allocation will be achieved. However, there is potential for the city to reach the number of new units that were outlined in the quantified objectives. We're less than halfway through our 8-year cycle, and we've issued permits for 35% of the 5,510 quantified objective units. We've also achieved development of a significant percentage of housing for the very low, and above moderate income levels that are outlined in the quantified objectives. And though progress towards the RHNA is based on the issuance of building permits, we also track the number of projects that were approved by the Planning Division through an entitlement or administrative review process, as well as the number of certificates of occupancy that have been issued by Building and Safety for completed housing projects. In 2024, a total of 428 housing units were approved by planning, and a total of 480 units were completed. Finally, the APR provides information regarding housing element programs. In 2024, Glendale continued to make significant progress towards implementing more than 30 programs that aim to preserve and produce affordable housing, provide housing-related services to the community, and ensure that the city remains in compliance with state housing law. The housing element programs consist of both new and ongoing activities. A partial list of notable actions in 2024 include monitoring of the Opportunity Sites Inventory List, an update to the city's ADU ordinance, as well as initial surveying of ADU property owners to track rent affordability, ongoing efforts to preserve the quality of existing housing, conserve affordable units, and the administration of the Rental Rights Program, continued direct financial assistance to nonprofit developers to increase the supply of affordable housing, and administration of several ongoing programs for lower income residents, including Section 8 and elderly nutrition programs. We also had a variety of services aimed for individuals experiencing homelessness, and the Glendale Municipal Code was updated to simplify the design review process and provide applicants with more surety in the development process. The Glendale housing element can be found online at www.glendaleplan.com. GlendalePlan.com also includes information on each of the general plan elements that are being adopted or undergoing an update, as Vilya outlined earlier in the presentation. And if you'd like more information on the APR, HCD compiles the data from each jurisdiction to track housing production across all of California. A dashboard on their website at hcd.ca.gov shows APR information from each city, county, and region in the state. This concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
Question. Okay. I have two questions. The first one is regarding the RENA. We have, obviously, we haven't met RENA's requirements. We are in the sixth year, I think. We have 2 more years. So I think we don't have any sites rezoned for 2024 to accommodate RENA. Does staff have any plans for this year or next year to accommodate the RENA's requirements? Do we know?
Commissioner Manassian, planning commissioners, no, correct, you're correct. We had no required rezoning as part of the 6th cycle housing element, so there are no required rezones for 2024 or 2025. So it's based on an 8-year cycle. In the next housing cycle, for the 7th cycle, it will depend on the number of units for the RENA allocation that the city receives. Fortunately, we are in the process of updating our land use element and our land use element map. We're looking at possibly raising the densities along major thoroughfares that include the bus rapid transit line, the BRT, that is slated for construction along Glen Oaks, down Central Avenue, and over to Broadway. So there might be additional capacity because of these rezoning efforts and increased density along transit lines to accommodate any future RENA as part of the 8th cycle. But there are no rezoning efforts right now required by the I apologize, I misspoke, for the 7th cycle as opposed to the current one that we're in.
My second question is also for RENA. It's, I noticed that, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 1,600 units set to be in the pipeline with 200 plus affordable, but no breakdown or timeline. Can staff provide a more detailed breakdown of pipeline projects, including affordability levels and estimated completion dates?
Thank you for the question. The bulk of that 1,600 units is in 2 large projects. One is the Sears project, which is proposing 666 units, including 16 live-work units. They also are going to have approximately 100 affordable housing units. However, the final numbers for the affordable housing has not yet been decided upon. It's going to be based on the developer's calculations for their density bonus application and at what level of affordability they are going to be providing the units. We also have a large project called the Ani project, which is proposing 858 units that will also include an affordable allocation. Again, that number is not yet decided upon as the application is in pre-application has not yet moved forward to the hearing process.
All right, thank you.
Any questions?
Sure, I can go next. I think I missed the part that the mobility element last updated 1998. Is that being updated and planned to be adopted this year, next year? What was the timing on that?
Yes, Commissioner Nazarian. The current circulation element, as it is called today, is being comprehensively updated as the mobility element, and it will be presented to the Planning Commission and City Council for adoption. We hope to have the 3 elements. This would be the land use element, the mobility element, and the environmental justice element ready for public review sometime later this year. And we will also be considering an environmental impact report as well to analyze the impacts associated with these 3 elements. So all of this entire project is grouped together and will be set for public comment, as again, later this year, and we hope to bring it to the various boards and commissions either later this year or early next year for council adoption in spring of 2026.
Maybe it's a little premature question, but any major changes or anything on the mobility and circulation that you can mention now?
We have, well, as noted during the presentation, the current mobility element really focused on vehicular movement on city streets, and the mobility element is going to be focused on the various modes of transportation, and that includes biking, walking, carpooling. It includes also new priorities regarding complete streets, the design of complete streets. It addresses the new traffic models and new traffic mobility trends as well. It looks at the different state legislation requirements that specify good movements, so perhaps not really considered here for the city of Glendale, but for other jurisdictions that might have, Amazon hubs or whatnot. But we still will look at, because we do have an industrial base here of the state legislation and the siting and traffic patterns and whatnot. So it is being comprehensively updated, and we will present it during the public comment period to the Planning Commission for review as well.
And I wasn't following detail the changes on Brand Boulevard north of the freeway. That has nothing to do with this update. That was totally different project on its own. And is that still going on, changing back and forth, or it's done deal? And
That was a completely separate project, and it is being reverted back to the existing condition, or I should say the previous conditions.
okay, and in the mobility and circulation element, it doesn't get to that detail level to address that or anything?
No, again, it's a very high-level, comprehensive, multimodal plan for the city's transportation network.
And different elements are being adopted different timing, right? They're not all going to be adopted at the same time, or did I?
Commissioner Azarian, so the three main elements, the land use, the mobility, and the environmental justice elements are being grouped together for presentation and adoption by City Council. The other ones are somewhat staggered. We are looking at the open space and conservation and the recreation elements combined because they have very similar features. We're looking at parks and open space and, park programming and whatnot. So those two will be actually updated together, and then the remaining elements on a case-by-case basis.
And you mentioned about the air quality and how old it was and possibility of deleting that. Typically, I always see air quality in general plans, so is that going to be something new that we're going to delete that totally? And what's going to replace it if we're going to delete that element from general plan?
Excellent question. So air quality is not a required element under the state legislation, state law. Some cities still have an air quality element. The trend right now is to address air quality and greenhouse gas emissions through the Climate Action Adaptation Plan. The Climate Action Adaptation Plan is currently in process. It was presented to the City Council, I believe, a number of months ago for initial review, and is slated to come back either late spring or early summer back to City Council. So that particular plan, the Climate Action Adaptation Plan, specifically looks at air quality and greenhouse gas emissions and the reduction of those to meet state legislation.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Fuentes?
I really don't have any questions. Thank you very much for a very good and comprehensive report. I'm looking forward to follow-up updates or report. Just one typo.
Yes.
Under open space, request for proposal, RFP versus RPF. I picked that up. Thank you very much for a good report. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I have a few quick questions or comments. Mine are just going to be focused on RENA and the housing element. Can you walk through some of the repercussions to the city if we don't meet our RENA numbers and what the criteria would be for that? And are we mandated to essentially show proof of the 5510 number, or are we really looking at the 13,000 number? So can you kind of delineate both and then just walk through some of that for me?
Yes, thank you for the question. As we mentioned during the presentation, we're not required to build the entire 13,000 RENA allocation number. The reason for this is that development in any city is largely dependent on developers coming forward with an application to provide housing. So what the city is required to do is to set the regulatory environment that will allow developers to come forward and meet those RENA numbers for us. As we mentioned, the six-cycle RENA was significantly higher for every city in California. Just for comparative purposes, our fifth cycle RENA allocation number was 2,004 units. So we experienced a six-fold increase in the number of units that we're required to show existing capacity for. As far as ramifications, because we're not required to build all of those units, what we are required to do is process the applications that come forward in a fair manner and make sure that all of our development applications are treated equally under our existing zoning and land use regulations. There are consequences that the state could potentially enact if they feel that certain cities are not meeting those obligations, up to and including revocation of the housing element. We do not want that to happen because that would then invoke something called the builder's remedy, which you may have heard about, which would allow developers to come in and make proposals for development applications that virtually don't have to follow any kind of zoning or land use regulations that the city has in place. So that would be a severe consequence for any city that is found by HCD to not be meeting those obligations.
Are there any financial consequences in the form of fines that the state can put down onto the city as a burden? And also, just extrapolating off of that, do we essentially just need to show proof from a zoning standpoint that we can accommodate the 13,000 and then show essentially administrative proof that we're reviewing in a prompt and fair manner for all of the applicants that we've been getting? And if people don't apply based on a variety of factors, it's been difficult to get financing, make deals pencil, raise money for deals. It's been a very challenging 4 years. So I'm just want to understand if there's any financial ramifications as well.
Yes, thank you. These are all excellent questions. There are financial ramifications. I'm not sure if the city attorney has precise numbers, but we have heard of fines being levied on cities that usually through the state attorney general's office if they're found to be not complying with housing element regulations. I'm sorry, I forgot what the next question was.
Just that,
Yes.
what it would be, I guess.
We do, so we have a sites inventory that's included within the housing element. It's a spreadsheet that shows specific parcels on which housing can be constructed, and it also breaks down the number of units based on income level. And so our consultant and city staff put together this sites inventory. Each site has to meet certain requirements in order to be considered an adequate site for housing. This would be the zoning of the site, whether there's an existing use on the site, if there is an existing housing project there, is there additional capacity that could be achieved through the zoning. It has to be of certain size, so between 2 and 5 acres to qualify for an affordable income site. So there's a number of factors that go into whether a site is going to be considered suitable for housing under the parameters of the housing element. What we do in our long-range planning shop is keep track of that sites inventory. We look at every housing application that comes in. We check to see if it is considered one of those housing element sites. If it is, we're looking to see, is it meeting the housing unit and affordability assumptions that are in the housing element? And if it's not, we're looking to see if we have the excess capacity to make up for that particular site. We also are tracking housing applications that are coming in for projects that are not on the site's inventory. So as we're getting applications for sites that were not envisioned within this document, we're also tracking that to make sure that we're keeping a very close track of all of the development potential that's in the city so that we don't, so far, we have not had to identify any alternative sites because we have been able to maintain that capacity. However, if we find that we are nearing a threshold where we might dip under in one of those affordability level categories, then we would potentially have to identify alternative sites to show as suitable for housing projects. And
Thank you.
yes, you are correct. There's a number of economic challenges that have occurred after this 4 years. More economic challenges may be ahead. And ultimately, the state is understanding that those factors are out of any local jurisdiction's control. So if we're seeing that housing construction is starting to slow across the city, that probably means that many other jurisdictions are in the same situation.
Thank you.
And if I could just supplement that response with respect to the financial or other consequences that might occur due to non-compliance. Generally, these would include limitations on access to state funding. It could be court-imposed fines and certainly potential lawsuits for developers who have found that the city may be in non-compliance. So that would include limited access to state funding. Those jurisdictions that are deemed non-compliant may lose eligibility for funding sources, including those for affordable housing, ironically, for affordable housing construction and infrastructure projects. As has been mentioned, the builder's remedy is always a consequence, which weakens local zoning controls, allowing developers to bypass local planning and zoning processes for certain affordable housing projects. Court-imposed fines are also an exposure that could occur for noncompliance, potentially reaching up to $600,000 a month. That was from a document in the town of Fairfax. So I don't know the specifics of what occurred there. But what we do know, for example, and this is closer to home, that the city of La Cañada Flint Ridge was subject to a builder's remedy case. Rather than proceed on an appeal, they lost at the trial court level. They were mandated, and this is allowed by statute, to post a bond in the equivalent of what the financial losses were from the delay, the developer's financial losses from the delay, and as a consequence of that, it was in the multi-millions of dollars they reached a settlement. So certainly, putting up a fight could be very expensive for jurisdictions. Loss of permitting authority is one of the other potential consequences. A court can suspend a jurisdiction's authority to issue building permits or grant zoning changes, forcing them to bring their housing element into compliance. And then if there's a failure to rezone, which could be if it were mandated, it could be a consequence in a timely manner, can lead over to carry over RENA units to the next planning cycle. We don't appear to be subject to that exposure here, but it's just one of the possible consequences.
Thank you for the comprehensive answers. Very helpful.
Come back one.
Sure.
Just for my own clarification, both of you mentioned building remedy, and I want to make sure I understand this. I thought that was for by right development, and you can't just zone change and go through building remedy. Did I understand that correctly, or did you mention they can do building remedy and change zone at the same time? I didn't think that's possible.
I don't believe that's possible.
Okay.
The builder's remedy is really.
For by rights project.
Yes, but when a city or jurisdiction falls out of compliance with the housing element. So as long as your housing element retains the certification, then you're not subject to that.
Okay, thank you.
One last question. I don't know if this is technically tied to the mobility element, but are we including the proposal for the Verdugo Wash within that update?
Chair Crockchin, we are not.
Okay, so that's more just viewed as a recreational enhancement.
It is, at this point in time, I'd have to review the document policy, how it's referred to, but it is not part of the transit network at this point in time, since it is purely a proposed project.
Thank you. So I believe that concludes that presentation. I believe we have one other item on new business, noticing of Planning Commission meeting agenda items and consideration of reordering oral communications portion of Planning Commission meetings. There was a request by Planning Commission to agendize following oral communication comments from our last meeting on April 2nd, 2025, and I believe we have some staff comments on this one.
We do, but one moment, I believe there was something you wanted to add, Lilia?
And I apologize, Chair Crockett. I just wanted to make known and to give a verbal thank you to Jackie Martinez in our long-range planning staff, because she is the one that manages the extremely detailed opportunity sites inventory and did a wonderful job updating our APR for this year. It is a Herculean task. And with that, I would also like to invite the planning commissioners and the public to come to Earth Day on April the 26th at Verdugo Park. It is going to be an open, free event. The long-range planning team will actually be manning a booth there and presenting a variety of projects that include the general plan element updates, our ADU survey, our upcoming multifamily and mixed-use objective design standards. So we definitely would love to see the planning commissioners and the public there at the Earth Day event, slated again for April the 26th at Verdugo City Park. So with that, thank you very much for having us, and we look forward to...
It goes from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m.
Yes, thank you. 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. So, and we look forward to coming back to the Planning Commission with updates on all of these various general plan element updates. So,
Thank you. All very exciting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have a brief presentation to kind of go over two of the items that were brought up during oral communications at our last meeting. One had to do with noticing of the meetings and agendas and how that works, as well as reordering oral communications in the Planning Commission agenda. So just generally for noticing of Planning Commission meetings and agenda items, our Glendale Municipal Code has code requirements for public notices. Most things that come to Planning Commission require a public notice: subdivisions, general plan amendments, zoning code amendments, et cetera. The typical notice period for a project that doesn't require CEQA review is 10 days. Additionally, while it's not updated in our code, the city is in compliance with recent state law that passed, AB 2904, which actually requires a 20-day notice for any zoning ordinance amendments. It hasn't been updated in our code, but we are in compliance with that. The notices for any of our hearings are published a few ways. One, through the newspaper, and that's done through Glendale Independent, and I see a typo, sorry, Edith. We also mail public notices for projects to owners and occupants within a 500-foot radius. We require applicants to post the site of the property with a 3x4 sign. All public notices are posted on the Planning Division's website. We also email public notices to the HOAs for those that have provided us with email addresses. Additionally, the speaker at Oral Communications made note that the agendas should be published in the paper. That is something that council would have to give us direction on. There would be an added cost associated with that. That's also not standard practice for any city. All of our public notices, however, do have a link to the agendas page of the city's website, which is glendaleca.gov/agendas. And that's how people know they can go click on that, or they can type that in and visit the agendas page and get information that way. Oh no, it's frozen. Okay. Sorry. Hop over. No, oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. Additionally, when it comes to the individuals' comments, they mentioned, the Brown Act. The city is in compliance with the Brown Act, which is an open meeting law. It requires our meetings to be open to the public, which they are. It requires our meetings to be noticed in advance, which they are. And we can only include business that's described in the agenda, which we do. Generally, the Brown Act requires the agendas to be posted 72 hours before for a regular meeting. Typically, here at the city for Planning Commission, we try to have the agenda posted at least a week before. We never, post it 72 hours before. We try to have it the Wednesday evening, the week before the meeting. And then under the Brown Act, if there's a special meeting, the requirement is 24 hours. The second item had to do with reordering oral communications on our agenda. Right now, it's kind of halfway through. It gives speakers 5 minutes to discuss topics that are not part of the agenda. There's, oral communications is required under the Brown Act. There's no mandate of where it should kind of happen on an agenda. Generally, citywide boards and commissions have oral communications halfway through their agenda. Everyone's given 5 minutes to speak, and it's usually before old or new business. The only kind of exception for that would be city council. They have 2 opportunities. So they've always had oral communications at the end of the agenda, which is what the individual was asking for last time, where people are given 5 minutes to speak. However, about 6 years ago, they added an opportunity halfway through the agenda, giving people 3 minutes to speak with a 5-speaker time limit during community event announcements. And this was so people wouldn't have to wait for all the business to happen, and then it's 11 p.m. and they get up there to speak. Staff is recommending keeping it on the agenda where it is. Unless you'd like us to, we can definitely reorder it. However, that means someone may have to wait till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night if they'd like to speak during oral communications. That more or less concludes my presentation. This was purely informational, but if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Fuentes?
Yeah, I thank you for the information. I kind of agree with staff to just keeping it where it is, and I have no problems.
You?
I'll second that. I don't see any big
Yes.
reason to change anything right now.
Alrighty. Well, that's it then. For that, let me
Okay.
go back to that.
And
So that brings us to Community Development Department updates. Do we have any updates that staff wants to
Any
share?
case?
So unfortunately, Commissioner Lee could not join us this evening. We did have a resolution to present him with, as well as a thank you card from our department for his 17 years of service on the Planning Commission. I will mail it to him.
He said 20.
Oh, our stuff says 17 on record. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
Last meeting, I mentioned, almost 20, and he said, no, 20 plus.
Oh.
So he knows.
He keeps adding a year.
I know.
So I will take care of mailing that to him so he still gets it. And then, other than that, the only announcement I have is a new commissioner was appointed during last night's council meeting. Commissioner Malikian needs to be sworn in, but once he is, he will be joining you up at the dais. He's a local architect, and he's a resident of the city of Glendale, so we welcome him when he joins us at the next meeting. And as far as the next meeting, there's nothing scheduled on the agenda for the first meeting of May. I will keep you posted for the second meeting, but as of right now, there's nothing scheduled.
So I'd like to give everyone an opportunity to say something about Commissioner Lee, or you can also table it for next time, but I think it might be worth saying something
Yeah,
personal.
well, might as well do it now. I've known, may I start?
Of course.
I've known Commissioner Lee since, like I said, 20-something years. I was still here with planning and zoning. Very thorough, very systematic or analytical, but I just want to say thank you very much for all the years of service that he has given to the city and to the community, and We will miss him, but I wish him well, whatever his next journey will be. Thank you, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks.
Commissioner
Well,
Massey?
I had a pleasure of working with, I've been on this dais for almost 6 years with Commissioner Lee. He has a steady voice, when he speaks, and he helped the city shape countless decisions that made a big impact on the city. So we definitely will miss him, and yeah, best of luck to him and whatever venture he's doing. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Commissioner Nazarian?
I guess I've met Commissioner Lee only a handful of times during the last few meetings I've been joining, and first of all, I really want to thank him for 17 years. That's pretty impressive, and I'm sure I'm not the one who's going to break that record. So that's very impressive for
Never say never.
the duration of the service he did. We're going to miss him for sure, and wish him all the best.
Thank you, and just a few comments as well. I wanted to thank Commissioner Lee for his dedication and service to the city of Glendale for over 17 years. I've had the pleasure of working with him on this dais for now just over 7 years. And I want to personally thank him for welcoming me with open arms, always being a resource and open to helping out in the beginning to allow me to get acclimated to the Planning Commission. At the time, it was a bit of a daunting task for me, being young and coming on the commission, and he was always very helpful and supportive towards me, and I definitely will always remember that, and I sincerely wish him all the best in all of his endeavors, and like my fellow commissioner said, we're definitely going to miss him a lot, but wishing him all the best, and I also welcome our new commissioner and look forward to working with him going forward. And so with that, I think we can adjourn.
So move.
Thank you.
Thank you.